I still remember the day the humans arrived at Station Kelvor-9, and honestly, I wish I could forget it. My name is Threxis, and I've been the head safety coordinator for the Galactic Trade Commission for 16 cycles. 16 cycles of dealing with species from across 4 spiral arms, managing everything from methane-breathing Volcari merchants to the crystalline-skinned Yenth diplomats. I thought I had seen everything. Then the human delegation walked through our airlock. "Welcome to Kelvor-9, I said, extending my primary manipulator in what the database assured me was the proper human greeting gesture. "I trust your journey was comfortable." The lead human, a female who introduced herself as Captain Vera Moss, gripped my appendage with surprising firmness. "Long, but we made it. Beautiful station you've got here. Beautiful." She called our utilitarian trading hub beautiful. I would later learn this was typical human behavior, saying pleasant things they didn't necessarily mean. We call it lying. They call it politeness. "We've prepared accommodations in the low-gravity wing," I explained, guiding them through the main concourse. Standard 0.3 G environment, suitable for most carbon-based species. Vera's companion, a male named Jackson who had the most peculiar facial hair arrangement I'd ever witnessed, laughed. Actually laughed. 0.3? That's adorable. I felt my neck frills flush purple with confusion. "I assure you the accommodations meet all GTC safety standards." "Oh, I'm sure they do," Jackson said, still grinning. "It's just, well, Earth pulls 1 full G. We grew up in gravity more than 3 times what you've got here." I stopped walking. "That's impossible. The structural stress on your skeletal system alone would make us dense as hell," Vera finished, that same amused expression on her face. "Yeah, we get that a lot." The third human, a quiet fellow named Marcus, hadn't spoken yet. He was too busy staring at everything with wide eyes, like a Prexian youngling seeing bioluminescence for the first time. When we passed through the grand atrium, where artificial gravity generators maintained a comfortable 0.4 G for the various species conducting business, he finally spoke. "This feels like floating." "It's standard protocol," I said, a bit defensively. "Optimal for trade negotiations, minimal physical stress." Right, Marcus nodded. "It's just weird, like walking on a moon or something." We were polite about it. I'll give them that. But there was this underlying current of amusement in everything they said, like they were in on some cosmic joke the rest of us hadn't heard yet. The problems started 3 days later. I was reviewing supply manifests in my office when my communicator erupted with panicked chittering. It was Velkek, one of our Manthari security officers. And Manthari never panic. "Threxis, you need to come to the recreation sphere immediately." "The humans, they're what?" I demanded, already moving toward the door. "They're exercising." I found them in Recreation Sphere 7, which had been empty because we were still calibrating the gravity systems. Apparently, the humans had requested access specifically because it was empty. And there they were. Vera was doing something she called deadlifts, which involved picking up a loaded cargo container, repeatedly, while making faces that suggested either extreme strain or severe digestive distress. Jackson was hanging from an overhead pipe, pulling his entire body weight up and down over and over. Marcus had found a wall and was slamming his feet against it in a rapid pattern he called running in place. A crowd had gathered. Velk stood at the entrance, all 4 of his eyes wide with what I would describe as existential horror. "What?" I said slowly. "Are you doing?" Vera set down the container with a heavy thunk that made the deck plates ring. "Morning workout. We've been slacking since we got here. All this low gravity, you know? Feels wrong. You're intentionally making yourselves uncomfortable." Jackson dropped from the pipe, landing with another unsettling thud. "Gotta maintain bone density, my friend. Can't let our bodies get lazy just because your station wants to cuddle us with baby gravity." I looked at the cargo container Vera had been lifting. "How much does that weigh?" "In Earth gravity, about 200 pounds. Here," she shrugged, "maybe 60, 70? Honestly, it's like lifting foam. 67 pounds, to be precise." I knew because I had tried to move that exact container last cycle, and needed 3 Volcari loading specialists to help me. The crowd was murmuring now. I heard the word freakish in at least 4 languages. Someone mentioned gravity mutants. A Yenth merchant actually fainted, though that might have been unrelated. Perhaps, I suggested carefully, you could conduct your, exercise rituals in private quarters. Why? Marcus asked, genuinely confused. We're not breaking anything. That was technically true. But they were breaking something else, something harder to define. They were breaking our understanding under what physical limitations meant. I let it go. First mistake. 2 days later, I received a complaint from Ambassador Krill of the Hectori Consortium. The Hectori are a proud species, advanced in mathematics and engineering, with a particular fondness for demonstrating their intellectual superiority. Krill had invited the human delegation to a formal dinner, which I thought might help smooth over the, shall we say, cultural friction. "You're humans," Krill hissed at me, his translucent skin flushing through several shades of indindent orange, "are primitive savages." What happened? I was explaining the elegance of our hyperspatial navigation systems. The mathematics alone took me 3 courses to outline, and that female, Vera, she listened to all of it, nodded politely, and then said, he paused, as if the memory physically pained him. She said, "Neat. But does it work when things go sideways?" I waited. And when I asked what she meant, she described a scenario where 17 different systems failed simultaneously during a gravitational anomaly near a neutron star. Then she explained in excruciating detail how Earth vessels handle such situations manually. Manually? Threxis, like barbarians steering boats on water. I'm sure she didn't mean to. She demonstrated the hand-eye coordination required by juggling 3 crystalline wine spheres while describing the mathematics. While juggling, Threxis. The physics she described were accurate. I checked. That night, I found Vera in the observation lounge, looking out at the stars. "Ambassador Krill is upset," I said, settling into a chair that groaned under my weight despite the reduced gravity. "Yeah, I figured." She didn't look away from the viewport. "I wasn't trying to show off." "What were you trying to do?" "Answer his question honestly." She finally turned to face me, and in the starlight I could see she was younger than I'd thought. "Look, Threxis, I get it. We're weird. Our planet is a high-gravity nightmare by galactic standards. We evolved in conditions that would cripple most species you know, but that's not our fault, and we're not going to apologize for being able to function in it." "No one's asking you to apologize." "Really? Because every conversation feels like we're supposed to be embarrassed about being strong. Like it's impolite to mention that what you consider heavy lifting is what we call grocery shopping." I didn't have a response to that. "You want to know the funny thing?" Vera continued. "Back home, I'm average. Completely, utterly average. There are humans who make me look weak. We have people who run ultramarathons for fun, who climb vertical rock faces without equipment, who swim in freezing water because they enjoy the challenge. And out here we're treated like circus freaks for doing basic calisthenics. It's not personal," I tried. "Isn't it?" She stood up, and even in the low gravity, there was a weight to her movement. "Every species we've met looks at us like we're either lying or genetic aberrations. You included." That stung because it was true. The real incident happened 4 days after that conversation. The Galactic Council had arranged a formal demonstration in the main assembly hall. Representatives from 43 species gathered to witness the humans present Earth's case for joining the broader galactic community. It was supposed to be a showcase of human culture, technology, and diplomatic potential. Jackson was in the middle of explaining Earth's approach to artificial intelligence, something about neural networks and ethical frameworks, when it happened. He pulled a pen from his jacket pocket. "Now I should explain something about galactic writing implements. Most species use either neural interfaces or specialized, low-mass styluses designed for low-gravity environments. Physical, weighted writing instruments are considered archaic, almost ceremonial. This pen, though, this was a standard Earth ballpoint pen, the kind Jackson explained humans carried around like it was nothing special. He held it up to emphasize a point about analog backup systems, and then he dropped it. In Earth gravity, I later learned this would have been meaningless. The pen would fall, hit the ground, maybe bounce once. Nothing dramatic, but we weren't in Earth gravity. We were in Station Kelvor-9 in the main assembly hall under standard 0.4 G conditions. That pen fell like it was made of neutronium. It dropped straight down, faster than any object that size should have moved, and when it hit the composite floor, there was a sound like a gunshot. The impact cracked the deck plating. Actually cracked it. Spiderwebs of fractured composite spreading out from a tiny impact point. The entire hall went silent. Jackson looked down at the damage, looked up at the assembly, and said, "Huh. These floors are softer than I thought." I watched Ambassador Krill's skin cycle through colors that don't have names in most languages. A Volcari delegate made a choking sound. Someone started a prayer in Old Prexian. Marcus bent down, picked up the pen, which had survived the impact without a scratch, and handed it back to Jackson. "Might want to hold on to that," he said casually. Vera stepped forward, and I could see her evaluating the situation, calculating the damage control needed. In Earth gravity, that's a normal drop. The pen weighs about 10 grams. Nothing special. 10 grams, repeated Counselor Vex of the Yenth Collective, should not crater a composite floor rated for 300 kilograms of distributed weight. "Well," Jackson said, examining his pen, "I guess everything's heavier in low gravity when it's built for high gravity. Conservation of momentum and all that." The murmuring started then. Quiet at first, then building. Words like dangerous and liability and incompatible floating through the assembly. I saw Vera's jaw tighten. Saw the moment she decided to stop being diplomatic. "You want to talk about incompatible?" She reached into her own pocket and pulled out what looked like a small metal cylinder. "This is a standard flashlight from Earth. Weighs maybe 200 grams. If I dropped it here, based on what just happened, it would probably go through your floor entirely." She didn't drop it, but she didn't need to. "Everything we carry," she continued, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent hall. "Every tool, every piece of equipment, every casual object we consider normal, is built to exist in an environment that would crush most of you. We've been trying to be careful. We've been trying to accommodate. But you keep looking at us like we're the problem." "You are a hazard," Vex stated flatly. "No," Marcus interjected, speaking up for the first time in the assembly. "We're adapted. There's a difference." The silence that followed was heavy in ways that had nothing to do with gravity. I remember thinking in that moment that this was it. The humans would be denied entry into the Galactic Council, would be labeled too dangerous, too different, too fundamentally incompatible with the rest of civilized. Then Counselor Prex, the eldest member of the assembly, did something unexpected. She laughed. Counselor Prex laughed, and when a being who has lived for 300 cycles laughs, everyone pays attention. "Adapted," she repeated, her ancient voice crackling with amusement. What a perfectly human way to describe surviving in hell. Vera's expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders relax slightly. "Earth isn't hell, Counselor. It's home." "Of course it is." Prix gestured with one withered appendage at the cracked floor. "Tell me, Captain Moss, what is the atmospheric pressure at sea level on your world?" 101.3 kilopascals. Standard. Another ripple of shock through the assembly. Our station maintained 70 kilopascals, which was considered the upper comfortable limit for most species. "And you function in this crushing atmosphere while being pulled down by triple our gravity?" Prex continued. "We don't think of it as crushing," Jackson said. "It's just normal." "Normal." Prex made a sound that might have been another laugh. "I have reviewed your medical data, humans. Do you know what I found most fascinating? Your bone, your skeleton is not just dense. It is actively reinforced by your own body, constantly rebuilding itself in response to the mechanical stress of simply existing. You are, quite literally, being crushed every moment of your lives, and your biology has decided the appropriate response is to become stronger." "That's one way to look at it," Marcus admitted. "There is no other way to look at it." Prex turned to address the full assembly. "They carry pens that crater our floors. Can you imagine what their construction equipment must be capable of? Their weapons, their starships built to withstand forces that would pulverize our vessels, I saw where this was going, and I didn't like it. The assembly was beginning to look at the humans not with fear of incompatibility, but with fear of capability. Vera saw it too. Counselor, if you're suggesting we're a military threat, I am suggesting, Prex interrupted, that you are the most terrifying species to arrive at this station in my lifetime. Not because you are violent, but because you do not even realize how dangerous you are. That pen drop was an accident. You didn't mean to damage our infrastructure, which means you are constantly, unconsciously holding back just to exist in our spaces, without breaking everything around you. The silence returned, but it felt different now. Heavier. What do you want from us? Vera asked quietly. Honesty, Prex said. Show us what you are really capable of. Not your weapons, not your military might. Show us what a human does on a normal day, in normal gravity, without holding back. Jackson and Marcus exchanged glances. Vera took a long breath. All right, she said. But don't say we didn't warn you. That's how, 2 hours later, I found myself in Cargo Bay 12, which had been hastily converted into what the humans called a demonstration area. The bay's gravity generators had been modified, cranked up to 1 full G, Earth standard. Half the assembly had crowded into the observation gallery above the bay. The other half had sent remote drones, unwilling to expose themselves to what they clearly considered a dangerous environment. I stood in the gallery next to Ambassador Krill, who had turned a nervous shade of green. This is madness, he muttered. 1 full G. The structural stress alone. The bay is rated for it, I assured him. Though I had checked the specifications 3 times myself. Below, the 3 humans stood in the center of the empty bay, wearing what they called casual clothes. Vera had changed into something called a tank top and shorts. Jackson wore a t-shirt with incomprehensible symbols on it. Marcus had stripped down to minimal covering, revealing a physique that made several observers gasp. Ready? Vera called up to us. I activated the communication link. Ready. What are you going to do? Live, she said simply. Then they started moving. Vera began with something she called a warm-up. She dropped to the floor and began pushing her entire body up and down using only her arms. Up, down, in a steady rhythm that seemed impossible to maintain. After 30 repetitions, she flipped onto her back and did something similar, pulling her torso up toward her knees repeatedly. That's basic exercise? Someone whispered behind me. She's just getting started, I murmured back, because I had seen them in the recreation sphere. Jackson had found a horizontal bar we had installed per their specifications. He jumped up, grabbed it, and began pulling his entire body weight up until his chin cleared the bar, then lowering himself back down. He did this 20 times without pausing. But Marcus was doing something that made my brain hurt to watch. He was running, not walking quickly, not jogging in that gentle way the Volcari move, actually running. His feet pounding against the deck with impacts that echoed through the bay like drum beats. He completed a lap of the entire cargo bay in under 30 seconds, his breathing barely elevated. Impossible, Krill breathed. The energy expenditure, the joint stress, is normal for them, I finished. For 20 minutes, they exercised. They lifted objects that would have required loading equipment for any of us. They moved their bodies through positions that looked like they should cause structural damage. They did everything at a pace that suggested they could continue for hours. And the entire time they were smiling, not grimacing in pain, not struggling against their limits. Smiling, like this was enjoyable. Finally, they stopped. Vera walked to the center of the bay, breathing harder now but still controlled, and looked up at the gallery. Questions? She called out. The flood of inquiries was immediate. How much weight could they actually lift? How fast could they run? How long could they maintain that activity level? Could they function in even higher gravity? Lower? What about their cognitive abilities under such stress? Vera held up a hand. One at a time, please. Counselor Prex's voice cut through the chatter. Captain Moss, I have a different question. What you just demonstrated, this is baseline human capability. Baseline? No, ma'am. We're all in decent shape, but we're not exceptional. Back on Earth, there are athletes who would make what we just did look like children playing. Athletes, Prex repeated. You have individuals who specialize in being even more physically capable. We have individuals who can run 100 kilometers without stopping, Marcus said. Swimmers who can hold their breath for over 20 minutes. Climbers who scale vertical rock faces using only their fingers and toes. People who train their entire lives to push human limits even further. And this is celebrated in your culture? Absolutely, Jackson said. We have global competitions where billions of humans watch the best of us compete. We call them the Olympics. They've been happening for thousands of years. I watched the assembly process this information. Saw the moment it really sank in. These humans, these average representatives, were the baseline. Somewhere back on Earth, there were humans who made them look weak. I begin to understand, Prex said slowly, why you have not been conquered by your environment. You conquered it instead. We didn't conquer anything, Vera corrected gently. We adapted, like I said before. Earth made us this way because nothing else could survive there. Our high gravity, our crushing atmosphere, our violent weather, our geological instability. Everything about our world is hostile to life. So life got hostile back. And then you built starships, Krill added, his color returning to normal. You took that hostile adaptation and pointed it at the stars. We got curious. Jackson shrugged. It's what we do. Counselor Vex, who had been silent since the pen incident, finally spoke. I owe you an apology, Captain Moss. I called you a hazard. I should have said you were hazardous to ignorance. You have shown us something today that the Galactic Council desperately needed to see. And what's that? Vera asked. That strength is not the same as aggression. That capability is not the same as threat. And that perhaps we have grown too comfortable in our low-gravity worlds, our gentle atmospheres, our controlled environments. You humans live every day in conditions that would kill most of us within hours, and you have thrived in spite of it. Or perhaps because of it. The assembly murmured in agreement. There is still the matter of practical integration, I felt compelled to point out. Your pens crack our floors. Your casual movements could injure other species by accident. How do we address these incompatibilities? Vera smiled, and this time it was warm, genuine. The same way we've addressed every challenge in human history, Threxis. We adapt. We learn. We build better floors if we have to. We train ourselves to be more aware in low-gravity environments. We find solutions because that's what humans do when faced with impossible problems. We make them possible, Marcus finished. Prex rose from her seat, the gesture commanding attention from the entire assembly. I move to grant Earth provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with full rights and privileges, pending a 6-cycle integration period during which we will work together to address practical concerns. Seconded, Trill said immediately. Thirded, added Vex. The vote was not unanimous. There were still those who feared what humanity represented, but it passed with a comfortable margin. As the assembly dispersed, chattering excitedly about the implications, I found myself alone in the gallery with the 3 humans who had climbed up to join me. Thank you, Vera said. I know this wasn't easy for you, advocating for us. I didn't advocate, I admitted. I just tried to understand. I'm still trying, honestly. That's all we ask, Jackson said. Understanding takes time. We know we're weird by galactic standards. Not weird, I corrected. Different. And difference is not a flaw. Marcus grinned. You're going to fit in great with humans, Threxis. We love collecting different perspectives. 3 months later, I stood in the same cargo bay, now permanently configured as a high-gravity human recreation area, watching Vera train a class of interested aliens in what she called basic strength conditioning. Krill was there, struggling through modified exercises in a gravity suit calibrated to 0.6 G. He had become fascinated by human athletic culture and was determined to experience it firsthand, even if it meant ridiculous amounts of assistive technology. Come on, Ambassador, Vera encouraged. 5 more. You've got this. Krill made a sound like a dying star, but completed the repetitions. I had tried exactly 1 session and decided my species was perfectly happy with our natural physical limitations, but I attended regularly anyway. Documenting the cultural exchange, watching as species after species tried to understand humans by understanding their relationship with physical challenge. You know what I find most interesting? Velk said, appearing beside me. The Manthari security officer had become something of a human culture enthusiast. They do not view their high gravity as a burden, they view it as a gift. It made them strong, resilient, adaptable. They love their brutal planet because it gave them the strength to reach the stars. Do you think we've grown soft? I asked. Here in our controlled environments, our optimized gravities, perhaps, Velk admitted, or perhaps we simply evolved differently. We prioritized other things: technology, cooperation, intellectual development. Humans had to prioritize survival first. It does not make either path wrong, just different, I said. Just different, he agreed. Below, Vera had finished the session. She was laughing with Krill, who looked simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. Jackson was explaining something about progressive overload to a group of fascinated Yanth. Marcus was helping a Volcari engineer understand the biomechanics of human movement, and in the corner, displayed in a protective case like the artifact it had become, was the pen. The pen that had cracked our floor and changed everything. Someone had attached a small plaque beneath it. I walked over to read it again, though I had it memorized. On this day, humanity showed us that what we consider impossible is simply what we have not yet attempted. May we all find the courage to adapt, to grow stronger, to face our challenges instead of engineering them away, and may we never again underestimate the power of a simple pen in the hands of someone who was born in hell and learned to call it home. I felt Vera approach behind me, her footsteps still heavier than she realized in our standard gravity. Dramatic, I commented. Prex wrote it, she said. Turns out she has a poetic side. It's accurate, though, I admitted. You did change everything. Not with weapons or threats, but with a dropped pen and some honest exercise. We just showed up and existed, Vera said. That's all we ever do, Threxis. We show up, we exist in whatever environment we find ourselves in, and we figure out how to make it work. It's the most human thing there is. Existing aggressively? She laughed. I prefer existing enthusiastically, but yeah, basically, I looked at her. This human who could accidentally destroy our infrastructure, but chose instead to teach us about resilience. This creature from a hell world who smiled while exercising in crushing gravity. This representative of a species that conquered their planet by becoming unconquerable themselves. I'm glad you came to Kelvor-9, I said honestly. Me too, Vera replied. Your floors are terrible, but the company is excellent. And as we stood there, watching species from across the galaxy attempt human exercises in modified gravity, learning to push against their own limitations, I realized something profound. The humans hadn't just joined the Galactic Council. They had challenged us to be better, stronger, more adaptable versions of ourselves. All because Jackson dropped a pen. Somewhere in the cosmos, on that brutal high-gravity world called Earth, billions of humans were living their normal lives, walking around in triple-hour gravity like it was nothing, carrying objects that would crater our floors, existing in conditions that would kill most galactic species, and they called it home. I shook my head in wonder. Humans, absolutely terrifying, absolutely inspiring, absolutely worth every cracked floor panel on the station.